Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're here for the first time. My name is Tamara, and on this channel, we talk all things social work. So today, I'm going to talk about my experience as being a medical social worker. I have my notebook here. I wrote down some notes. If y'all see my chicken scratch, look at this, y'all. Look at this chicken scratch, y'all. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. I've always had horrible penmanship, y'all. I'm still working on it. I'm in my 30s and I'm working on it. But anywho, so let's get into it because I don't like to drag things out. So a little background. So I was a medical social worker for almost 3 years. I worked full time as a medical social worker for 2 years. And then after that, I was a floater, meaning I went to different hospitals as needed, like on an as needed basis. This was the first job that I was able to get out of my MSW. I applied, and literally within like 6 days, I received an email for an interview, went to go interview, then they offered me the job like the next day. So medical social worker, I'm speaking from a hospital standpoint. Later on, I'll make a video about dialysis because I was a dialysis social worker as well. But for this video, I'm talking about being a hospital social worker. So I am going to talk about the qualifications, the pros and cons, what I did, all that stuff. So qualifications. For the area where I'm at, I'm in Virginia, usually you have to have an MSW to work in the hospital setting. Now, what's interesting to me is that the nurses that I worked with, they didn't have to have master's degrees, but we had to have master's degrees. But anywho, yes. So the majority of the social workers that I worked with, all of them were MSWs. So that's, I already told you how long I worked there, almost 3 years altogether for one company, but 2 years full time and then 1 year like as a floater. Let me see. Okay. So let's tell you a little bit about what I did as a hospital social worker. So as a hospital social worker, the main priority are discharges, especially if we were code black. That means there were like no beds in the hospital. So what I would do is I would have my caseload, like my list, and within my department, we had floors. So let's say I had like the med surg floor, surgical floor. I had the ortho floor, which was like hips and knees, or, usually going to rehab. And let's say I had mother baby, meaning women who gave birth. So, and usually the only time, if you had mother baby, you went up there is if a woman tested positive for a substance and a baby did. There was any type of CPS or anything like that involved, or if there were any orders that came to the hospital, like a letter stating like, hey, this person is coming to the hospital to give birth soon. We have like an immediate removal for the child. So then we had to get involved. So yeah, so it was divided by floors. I had my floor, I had my list of patients. And what I would do is, when I was talking to the doctor, we would have our rounds in the morning with the doctors and nurses. We would talk about, hey, this person going 1 or 2 days. This person is going 2 or 3 days. So I would make my list. Okay, who's going today? All the people who were discharging supposedly that day, that was priority. I would go see them first. Hey, you leaving today? You going home? You need to get your medication. You have a ride, all that good stuff. Try to get everything out the way so that you never wanted to be in the way of a discharge. I never wanted the delay to be on me. I was like, hey, we waiting on the doctor. That's all. I'm done. So that's what I would do. I would go see all the people who were discharging that day. So I would go see them, knock them out. Oh, somebody's discharging tomorrow? Let me go see them. And then, after that. So yeah, hospital discharges. If people needed to go to rehab centers to work like a physical rehab center to work on their, physical strength, we did that. Unfortunately, sometimes we did have some patients in the hospital who mentally and physically cannot take care of themselves. So usually, sometimes we had to, have them placed in a long-term care nursing facility, meaning you stay there and you live there. So sometimes I had to, we had an agency in the building that would do Medicaid applications, so I'd have to call them, have them screen for Medicaid. What else? Set up home health for if nurses needed to come to the home, especially if they had to do IV antibiotics and things like that. However, I personally feel that some of the things that they had us doing, I felt that from a social work standpoint, and even my LCSW supervisor told me, I should not have been doing. I would always ask nurses. I spoke to my manager who was a nurse. yeah, who was a nurse, like, hey, like, this really goes against my, you know, my ethical, the code of ethics, because I'm really operating outside of my scope, because I know nothing about this, and I have to call and do all this medication, these scripts, all this stuff, getting all these beds ordered. There was certain stuff that I was just like, this isn't really something I feel like a social worker should be doing. Like, why are we doing this? Like, why aren't the nurses doing this? I'm confused. And I was told, oh, the nurses can do everything that you do. And I'm like, but they are a nurse. They went to school for this. I didn't go to school for that. So hence, after I got my LCSW, I left. But yeah, so I had an issue with that. And I don't know if some of you all may feel differently. I have some social work friends who they feel different than me. They feel like, hey, no, I can do it. Like, no, I can, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I went to school for. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So, you know, the social issues, helping with getting, you know, medication assistance, of course, like CPS, abuse, neglect. If they needed to, you know, go to a nursing home or rehab facility, stuff like that, yeah, I have no problem doing that. But when you have me trying to set up like IV medications, I need to figure out how often the IV is, and it was just very complicated stuff that I'm like, I didn't go to school for it. And even though I could have a nurse tell me, but I don't like doing stuff like that based off of somebody else's knowledge, because what if they're wrong? You know, like, I'm like, I want to go off of what I was trained for, and I know that if something was to happen, I can say, you know what, that was my fault, not because I asked somebody else who could be wrong. So that's just me. So that's a con. Sorry, I'm moving into cons. That was a con I felt for working in the hospital. Like, I did not like that. Like, I felt like some of the things that I was asked to do should have went to a nurse, you know. So oh, another con was, even though the mentality was that we should do what they can do, like the nurses should do what the social workers do, because within my department I work with social workers and nurses, they got paid way more than us, okay? And they did not have a master's degree. Some of them, I think, had bachelor's degrees. And I'm like, why are they making more than me and I have a master's degree? I'm confused. So that is still an issue today. I'm actually on a group with the NSAW where we have meetings for medical social workers. Even though I'm no longer a medical social worker, I'm still in the fight for them. Like, we need to be paid, like, you know, almost, if not the same as them. If we're doing the same work, why are we getting paid less? Why? But yeah, anywho, that was a con. I did not like the fact that I was pretty much considered essential personnel. So, like, if it was a snowstorm, if it was ice, if it was anything, because the hospital I worked at when I was working full-time was 45 minutes away from my house. Was it 45, 40 minutes away? So they were like, we don't care, you gotta get here. Like, they offered the nurses, the doctors, hotels. Us, we had to figure it out. Like, y'all had to figure it out, but you gotta get here. And I didn't like that. So, didn't like that. I talked about the pay. I talked about how we had to do things that I felt like social workers should not be doing, that should be going to the nurses, not us. Let me see. Not as much pay. Oh, and also holidays. We didn't have all the holidays off. There was always someone who had to work a holiday. So that, I did not like that at all, because I love spending time with my family and with my friends and stuff like that for holidays. I just did a video on self-care. Please check that out, because I feel like for me, that's a part of self-care, is being with my family on holidays. So I didn't like that we had to alternate holidays. But you knew in advance when your holiday was coming, and sometimes you could switch within with each other. But I didn't like that I had to work holidays, and there was like some specialists, like ID, infectious disease, they were off. A lot of people were off, and I'm like, so they're off. This person is infectious disease, okay? And they're not working today, but I gotta work. But okay. Anywho, oh, another con or pro, depending on how you look at it, I had to do guardianships. I had to get involved in guardianships. Well, I didn't do the guardianships, but I had to contact the lawyer's office to start guardianship processes. I had to go to court twice in regards to a patient at the hospital. I didn't have to speak, but I had to go just in case if I had to talk. So for some people, they're like, oh yeah, like, it's exciting, you know, which I didn't mind. But for some people, like, I don't want to go to court. I don't want to do any of that stuff. But I did have to go. And I will also say, please make sure you document. There were some times I was putting so much documentation in there, and I worked with someone and loved her to death. She used to document so much, and everybody would talk about her. Why you always document? She was there for almost 30 years, y'all. Why you document so much? Why you document? Because if I ever had to go to court, or if I ever had to do whatever, I documented. Let me tell you something. There was one time something happened, and they pulled them notes up. Everybody was getting interviewed, and when I tell you, I think not only did I document what the patient said to me, I was documenting everything. And I was just like, thank God I did that. Thank God I documented this, because if not, you know, it wouldn't have been good. So definitely documentation is key. I document everything. There were sometimes some people didn't like what I documented, what they said, but you said it, so I'm putting it down. I'm putting it down. That's okay. You get mad at me or you want to. I'm advocating on behalf of the patient and the family, so that's okay. But that's what you said, so I'm putting it down. But yeah. So those were some of the cons. One of the pros, I will say that if you were interested in learning some, you know, about the medical field, I did learn a lot of interesting things, like the importance of vitamin D and just other stuff. I did learn a lot, even in regards to guardianships, you know, in regards to having to call the psychologist down, to have them test someone, do a psychological test on, you know, the mental status and things like that, and what legally you can do, what legally you can't do. So I did learn a lot of stuff that I learned now. Also about Medicaid. I learned so much about Medicaid and Medicare and Medicare A and B. And I learned a lot about insurance, a lot of things that I did not know then that I feel like it was a wealth of knowledge. I hope I'm not scaring anybody away from being a medical social worker, because I will say with the cons, I learned so much that even now within my position, I hear stuff and I'm like, oh no, ask them if you can fill out the application, ask them to fill out the application for assistance for the hospital bill, and oh, make sure they do this, or, you know, like I remember so much. So I learned a lot. I really did learn a lot. So and that is the position that I used after I finished my 2 years. I went and I sat for my LCSW exam and I passed it. Praise the Lord. So yeah, but if you do have a job there, or if you're interested in working there, if you want to do it, please do it. You will learn a lot. You will definitely learn a lot. But anywho, I am done. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Leave some comments. Are you a hospital social worker? What do you like? What don't you like? Is there anything that I did not touch on in this video that you would like for me to expound upon? Please let me know. I'm posting some other videos today, so this top may look familiar, y'all. I'm off today. Self-care. Watch that video. So I was like, you know what? I need to knock out some videos, because this channel, I don't want to feel like I'm not posting up here, y'all. But listen, I'm a wife, I'm a mommy, I work full time, I'm in school, I'm in a sorority, okay? I do a lot of stuff. So I don't want to feel like I'm neglecting y'all. So when I have the time, I'm like, ooh, let me write this down. Ooh, let me do this. Let me write this down. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and get this out the way. So yeah, so. Anywho, like I said, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you are a medical social worker, please, or a hospital social worker, I should say, because you can do dialysis and other stuff, but hospital social worker, let me know what you think. And I love y'all. Thank y'all. Have a good day.